it appears that this potentiometer is actually bad. As you can see, I've unsoldered it from the board. The pins aren't touching these pads, at least not more than one or so. But I've been measuring across, and the wiper should basically have near 0 ohms resistance to each end contact when it's turned that direction. So when I turn all the way down, this one and this one should be near 0 ohms, and then when I turn all the other way, the wiper and that side should be near 0 ohms, and then from the wiper to there should be almost the full range of this potentiometer. So on the left channel, whenever I turn it to all the way down, it actually goes to about 2 ohms, and when I turn all the way up, it's about 7, so that's really close. But on the right channel, it's about 740 ohms, even when it's all the way down, and when it's all the way up, it's about 250 ohms. So there's something wrong with the right channel, and that's this side here. So I've actually located another board and a potentiometer that I'm going to swap it out of there and put it on here. Actually, I'm going to test it first to make sure it actually works properly with my meter, and then I'm going to swap it and put it on this board. Well, I'm deep into recapping this main board. I've got pretty much this whole area done. The little power supply area here in back is done, and everything up front behind these switches and potentiometers is pretty much done. Let's see if I can get a flashlight view here. All that's done. I've hit these switches with a real nice shot of deoxit and Fair Lube on the pots here, and deoxit, try and get them smooth and noise free. So next step I'm going to do is actually put this board partially back in and do the rest of this stuff in the back here from the back side, which is going to be a lot easier. So that'll be the next step. But I got about 2/3 of this board is done. So that's making progress, I suppose. I've got the control board out and I've recapped that. This one's pretty easy. There's a couple of plugs and plugs from the board above it there with all the switches and everything on it, so that's nice. There's only a few caps on this one. A couple small values I replaced with polyfilm. All the other ones are electrolytic, so I just did like for like. And now I got to work on this little control board, which I think I see only 2 caps on, but I got to de-X all these switches too. So that's what I'll be working on next. Well, after I've done all that and put the deck back together, I'm giving it a test to make sure everything's still working properly, which it is. That new potentiometer that I snagged off that board for the output does in fact correct the problem. I turn it all the way down to 0. My computer monitor's making a reflection on there. There's no output though, and you can't hear anything, so that's good. And you start turning it up, and you get there. So that's good. However, the input problem still remains, where even when I have no signal there, it's still bleeding through. So I'm going to have to poke around a little bit more with the input. I never actually tested this potentiometer to see if it maybe had a similar problem. I've got one because I bought that whole board. Sucks that I already put the whole front back together, but I guess better to do it now than after I have the thing completely together. So let me desolder that and test it out of circuit, at least with the pins desoldered, so I can tell if there's really something going on or not. Well, I may be swapping all of these pots for the ones on the new board. This thing is all the way to the max left, and I still got 88, 89 ohms on the right channel and about 40 ohms on the left channel, and I can hear the auto faintly through the left channel as well. The total resistance of the pot is 40.7 kilo ohms, and I believe it's supposed to be a 50 kilo ohm. That's just ridiculous. That's a 20% drop, and I know these things are not perfect, but that's just not right. I don't know if this series, the newer one, actually it's probably older, but the other one that I swapped in looks different. You see how it's got that brass sleeve, whereas these have this aluminum sleeve. But all the ones on the new board have the board I bought, which is probably an older board, have the brass sleeve. So I may be swapping all these. The ones on the board I bought are a lot better. And here's the new one I snagged off that board I bought. At the one extreme, it's 0.9 ohms from the wiper to the end, and the other channel I just tested is 0.5, which is just awesome. That's what it's supposed to be. Well, I finished recapping the main board here and testing it. I just applied some signal and I was able to test it just fine. Everything is working as I expected. So the next step is going to be finish with the main board, which is going to entail cleaning off the bottom. Now I want to make a note in case anybody's ever working on a unit like this, or a lot of receivers have. They got this capacitor back here is called a polystyrol capacitor. It's a very low value, but it's rather large and it has a lot of great characteristics for a capacitor, which I won't go into. But they're used in sensitive areas in most cases of either a tape deck receiver or amplifier or anything else. And you gotta be very careful when working around one of these, because the temperature tolerance of them is quite low, and temperatures as low as 85 degrees Celsius will actually destroy the capacitor. I think 85 is the limit, the high limit of what they can take. So a lot of times you'll see these things soldered up off the board, where maybe a heatsink was clipped to the leads while it was being soldered or something like that. And you gotta be very careful when resoldering the joints. So what I've actually done here is drawn black Sharpie all over the solder joints for those capacitors so that I don't reflow them when I'm reflowing all the other joints, because that would essentially destroy the capacitor, and I can't have that happening. So those I will not touch with a soldering iron, and then when I go to clean the board off, it will clean the Sharpie off so everything looks nice in the end, since I won't need to be soldering on the board anymore. So I gotta still clean off this board. As you can see, it's got that gooky polyurethane crap that they spray on there, and I gotta get that all cleaned off, and a lot of the excess flux from the recapping is still on the board, so I gotta get this board all cleaned up. But that's the plan right now. Get this main board finished up, and the only thing I have left is this smaller board on the side that is basically the tape head amplifier. It deals with a lot of what actually goes directly to the heads. Well, I finished cleaning this board now and resoldering it all. Resoldered every joint, clean off all the flux and other things that were on here from my recapping, as well as factory, which was never cleaned off properly. So this is very important when you're working on a piece of equipment like this. Take the opportunity when you have the thing open to actually resolder the joints and clean up the boards and everything. You can make this thing perfect if you want. It's just a matter of how much time you're going to spend on it. But if you're going to open it up, you might as well get it right. So this board's done. I got to put the bottom support piece back on here that holds everything together in the back, since it's very flimsy right now, the whole chassis. And then I can go ahead and flip it around and start working on this side board, which is the last board then that I need to work on. So there it is. We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, here's the head amp board, which contains the individual amplifiers for the 4 different tracks, the 2 forward and 2 reverse. It also contains a microphone preamp and a few other things on this board as well. And I finished resoldering it. It's done being recapped, and also scrubbing off all the original, whatever that was, flux and other things. So the board is very clean right now, and all the flux from my work on it as well. So the board's been resoldered too, and just finishing cleaning it off before I put it back into and reassemble this side of the deck. So things are moving along pretty well. Hopefully I'll be able to put this back together and run the deck for a little while and test it, go from there. Thing of beauty. Board with fresh caps and cleaned up real nice. It's a wonderful thing. Well, all the recapping on this is done. This board was a monster. That was the toughest one. What I'm doing now is just doing some tidying up, cleanup type work. I'm scrubbing these little covers that go over the pinch roller. As you can see, I've already done this one, and it's fairly shiny. It's not made of metal. I'm pretty sure it's made of plastic based on the construction of it. But this one's I haven't done yet. You can see it's just kind of nasty. I think it's from when those old rollers got gooey and some got on there. So I've scrubbed this one really nice. It's very shiny and clean. I'll put it back on there. I'll take it off of here. Obviously wouldn't want to scrub that with it on the roller there. So do that, and just the finishing touches sometimes, you know, it just looks a lot nicer when it's clean like that. And this got back to almost factory clean. I mean, there's a couple of small dings. Well, now everything's back together and I'm testing it. The reason I'm not playing the audio so I don't get the video muted. But everything sounds good. Everything sounds the way it's supposed to. And now that I've got these potentiometers replaced for the output and line, when I turn it all the way down, I actually get nothing, both out of the sound and on the meters, which is nice. So that's cool. Let's see. Not too much else to report. Recorded a few things, try and play back various directions and stuff. 10-inch reels, 7-inch reels, everything seems to be working just fine. So the next step would be, and I'm not sure if this is going to happen at the moment, the next step is going to be getting the heads relapped and then getting an alignment tape and doing all that nonsense. Right now the tape path has not changed, even though I've rebuilt the guides and everything else. The tape path is exactly where it was, and it may have to stay like that, unfortunately, for right now. I think that's the end of that. But that's the last step kind of that needs to be done on this thing, is relapping the heads and then doing the alignments, for record and playback. And that's something I don't think I can afford at the moment. So that may have to wait while I kind of save up for that. So right now this is where it'll stop, and then I'll add on to the video if I am able to get the money to get the heads relapped on here. It does sound really good, although there is a pretty decent amount of wear on the heads right now. There is a groove where the tape has been, and you can see it and feel it with your fingernails. So this does need to be relapped. The tape path alignment is actually very good on here right now from the factory. I don't think these heads have ever been taken off of here. So it sounds good, and the high frequency is still there and everything, but I think you probably still benefit from the head relap, even if just kind of from a longevity standpoint at the moment, especially if I start using this thing on a regular basis. The heads are going to wear down even faster, and I want the tape to head surface contact to be as good as possible. If I'm going to do all this effort on the deck, recapping and doing all the other repairs that I've done on here, I kind of like to take it all away and actually get it basically perfect if I can. So, but that's kind of the last step that needs to be done on here at the moment. Everything else is working perfectly. So here it is as it stands, and then I'll update it if I'm able to get the heads relapped.